The storm raged outside my apartment window as I struggled to focus on my late-night debugging session. Lightning illuminated my cramped living room in sharp bursts, thunder rolling across the city like nature's own drum solo. I was about to call it quits when a sound cut through the chaos. 3 distinct knocks at my door. At first, I thought I was hearing things. Who would be visiting at 2 a.m. during the worst downpour of the year? The knocking came again, more urgent this time. Something in the rhythm seemed off, not quite human. I approached the door cautiously, baseball bat in hand, a souvenir from my college days that had never seen any action beyond friendly games. Through the peephole, I could make out a tall, slender figure shrouded in what looked like a dark, dripping wet cloak. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Help, please." The voice was feminine but strange, with an accent I couldn't place and harmonics that made the hair on my neck stand up. "I am not from here. Need assistance." Against every horror movie rule I knew, I opened the door. What stood before me made me question everything I thought I knew about reality. The figure was indeed tall, easily 7 feet, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Her eyes were large and entirely silver, reflecting the hallway lights like mirrors. What I had thought was a cloak was actually some kind of protective membrane, now damaged and hanging in tatters around her humanoid form. She swayed slightly, holding onto the doorframe with long, delicate fingers that had an extra joint. "Your world's precipitation. It burns. Need to remove it. Please, help wash." I stood there, mouth agape, as my brain tried to process what I was seeing. This wasn't some elaborate costume or practical joke. The being before me was unmistakably alien, and she was in distress. Earth's rain was apparently harmful to her kind, perhaps acidic to her unique biology. I stammered, then took a deep breath. "Come in. Quick." I stepped aside, and she glided past me with an otherworldly grace despite her obvious discomfort. Water droplets fell from her membrane cloak, leaving small scorch marks on my wooden floor. "Thank you," she said, her voice modulating in impossible ways. "I apologize for the intrusion, but my ship's protective fields malfunctioned during atmospheric entry. I had to make an emergency landing in your city park. Your dwelling was the closest with signs of consciousness activity." My mind raced with questions. A real alien in my apartment, asking for help with what amounted to a cosmic shower. The situation was absurd, yet here I was. I'd always wondered how I'd react if I ever encountered extraterrestrial life. Would I panic? Call the authorities? Try to go viral on social media? Instead, I found myself doing the most human thing possible, offering help to someone in need, regardless of where they came from. "We need to get you cleaned up before that rain does any more damage," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "But I have no idea what's safe for your, biology. How do we do this?" She turned those mesmerizing silver eyes toward me, and I swear I could see galaxies swirling in their depths. "I can guide you through the process," she said, reaching into a hidden pocket in her membrane cloak. "But first, there's something you should know about why I'm really here." From a hidden compartment in her membrane cloak, the alien withdrew what looked like a translucent crystal, about the size of my palm. It pulsed with a soft blue light that cast dancing shadows across my living room walls. I found myself unconsciously leaning forward, drawn to its hypnotic glow. "My species are known as the Lumini," she explained, her voice carrying undertones that reminded me of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We are explorers, scientists, and refugees." The last word seemed to cause her physical pain, her iridescent skin dimming slightly. I gestured toward my small bathroom. "We should probably get you cleaned up first, then talk details." The rain residue was clearly still causing her discomfort, small wisps of steam rising from where the droplets touched her skin. She nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. "Yes, but please, keep this with you." She pressed the crystal into my hands. It was warm to the touch and seemed to hum at a frequency just below my hearing threshold. "It's a quantum key. If anything happens to me, it must not fall into the wrong hands." The bathroom in my one-bedroom apartment barely fit me, let alone a 7-foot-tall alien. She had to duck significantly to get through the door, her membrane cloak leaving a trail of sizzling droplets. I grabbed every towel I owned, which admittedly wasn't many, and laid them out on the floor. Our skin requires specific mineral compositions for cleaning, she explained, reaching into another hidden pocket to produce what looked like a handful of glowing sand. Mix this with your water. It will neutralize the harmful elements. As I adjusted the shower temperature to lukewarm, following her instructions, she began carefully peeling away the damaged membrane cloak. Underneath, her form was vaguely humanoid, but with subtle differences that marked her as distinctly alien. The extra joints in her fingers, the way her shoulders seemed to flow rather than connect, the slight luminescence of her skin. "I'm Rick, by the way," I said, realizing we hadn't actually introduced ourselves. "I don't suppose you have a name I could pronounce." She made a sound like crystal wind chimes in a breeze. "In your language, the closest approximation would be Aurora." She carefully stepped into the shower, and I heard a soft sigh of relief as the mineral-infused water began washing away the harmful rain. "The crystal you're holding," she continued as she bathed, "contains information vital to both our species. The Lumini discovered something troubling. We aren't the first advanced civilization to visit Earth." I found myself absently running my fingers over the crystal's smooth surface. "You mean other aliens have been here, besides you?" "Yes, but not with peaceful intentions like ours. We detected their dormant technology scattered across your planet. Some of it is beginning to activate." The water running off her form had taken on a slight phosphorescent quality, gathering in swirling patterns on the bathroom floor before disappearing like mist. "What kind of technology are we talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. "Terraforming seeds," Aurora replied, her silver eyes catching the bathroom light. "Devices designed to slowly modify a planet's environment, making it hostile to its native life forms while creating conditions suitable for the seeders. They were planted thousands of years ago, but something, we don't know what, caused them to remain dormant. Until now." I sank down onto the closed toilet lid, the crystal suddenly feeling much heavier in my hands. "So you're saying some ancient alien civilization is trying to terraform Earth, to kill us all?" "Not trying. Has already begun." Aurora stepped out of the shower, her skin now glowing with a healthy iridescence. "The recent changes in your global weather patterns, the unprecedented storms, like the one tonight, these are not natural phenomena. They are early signs of the terraforming process." The thunder outside seemed to emphasize her point, rattling my apartment windows. I thought about all the news reports of bizarre weather events, the increasing frequency of once-in-a-century storms, the unexplained atmospheric phenomena that scientists struggled to explain. "The crystal contains the combined research of our best scientists," Aurora continued, accepting a towel from me, "including potential methods to deactivate the terraforming seeds. But we're not the only ones who know about this. There are others, those who would profit from your world's transformation, who would rather see the process continue." A sharp crack of thunder made us both jump, and the lights in my apartment flickered ominously. Aurora's expression changed, her silver eyes widening. "They've tracked me here," she whispered, her voice carrying new harmonics of fear. "We need to." The lights went out, plunging us into darkness. In the dim glow from Aurora's skin and the crystal in my hands, I saw her reach for something else in her remaining scraps of membrane cloak. Outside, the storm had gone eerily quiet. Then came the knocking at my door. 3 distinct knocks, just like before, but this time the rhythm was perfect. Too perfect. My heart thundered in my chest as Aurora pressed a finger to her lips, motioning for silence. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. In the darkness, her skin's glow dimmed to almost nothing, leaving only the crystal's soft blue pulse to illuminate the bathroom. "Back window," I whispered, my mind racing through escape options. "There's a fire escape, but we're 5 stories up." I trailed off as heavy footsteps echoed from my building's hallway. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Aurora's voice dropped to a barely audible whisper, her breath cool against my ear. The crystal is attuned to my biology. If they capture me, it won't work for them. You must take it. Find others like you, those who will listen, who will help. The information it contains is your planet's only hope. Before I could protest, she pressed something else into my hand, a small device that looked like a polished seashell. This will show you how to use it, but you must go. Now. The door lock clicked, then clicked again. Someone was trying to pick it. I gripped the crystal and device tighter, my palm sweaty. I can't just leave you. Your species' compassion, Aurora interrupted, her silver eyes softening. It is your greatest strength and your greatest vulnerability. But right now, you must think beyond a single life. Billions depend on that crystal reaching the right hands. A new sound joined the storm, the whir of what had to be a drone outside my window. They had the building surrounded. My mind flashed to all those conspiracy theories about black government agencies and men in dark suits making people disappear. Except this was worse. These weren't even human agencies we were dealing with. The bathroom window burst inward in a shower of glass. Aurora shoved me hard, sending me stumbling into my bedroom as something like a net of crackling energy filled the bathroom doorway. Through it, I caught a glimpse of her raising her hands, her skin flaring with brilliant light. "Run," she commanded, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to vibrate in my bones. "They cannot track you like they track me. Use the chaos. Survive. Find the others." The front door gave way with a crash. Shadows moved in my peripheral vision, tall figures in seamless dark suits that seemed to absorb light. They moved wrong, too fluid, too quick. I clutched the crystal and device to my chest and did the only thing I could. I ran. The fire escape rattled under my feet as I half climbed, half fell down the metal stairs. Rain lashed at my face, but I barely felt it. Behind me, lights flashed from my bathroom window, blues and purples that had no place in nature. A high-pitched whine cut through the storm, making my teeth ache. I heard Aurora cry out, not in pain, but in what sounded like defiance. The entire building shuddered. Car alarms began wailing up and down the street. Something fast and dark swooped past me, another drone, trying to cut off my escape. I jumped the last section of fire escape, hitting the alley pavement hard. Pain shot through my ankles, but adrenaline kept me moving. The crystal pulsed faster against my chest, almost like a heartbeat. More figures were converging on the alley ends, moving with that same wrong fluidity. Their suits rippled like oil on water, similar to Aurora's natural skin, but somehow corrupt, twisted. I backed against the alley wall, looking desperately for an escape route. The drone swooped lower, its sensors focused on me. In my hand, the shell-like device Aurora had given me suddenly grew warm. Without thinking, I raised it toward the drone. A pulse of something, not quite light, not quite sound, rippled out. The drone dropped like a stone. Life signs detected, came a voice from one end of the alley. It sounded almost human, but with something else layered underneath, like multiple voices speaking in perfect synchronization. "Surrender the quantum key." I gripped the crystal tighter, feeling its pulse sync with my racing heartbeat. Above, the storm intensified, lightning flickering in patterns that looked suspiciously like language. The figures drew closer, their suits rippling with barely contained energy. Then the shell device pulsed again, projecting something into my mind. Coordinates, images, fragments of knowledge. I saw a network of people scattered across the globe. Scientists, researchers, ordinary people who had noticed something wrong with the world's weather patterns. People who might believe me. People who might help. If I could reach them. The figures were almost within arm's reach now. Their faces, beneath sleek helmets, were wrong in ways my brain refused to process. The crystal's pulse reached a fever pitch, and I felt knowledge unfurling in my mind. How to use it, how to protect it, how to find the others. But first, I had to survive the next 30 seconds. Thunder cracked overhead like a breaking world, and I made my choice. The shell device grew scalding hot in my palm as the dark figures closed in. Their helmets split open like blooming flowers made of shadow, revealing faces that shifted between human and something decidedly not. I pressed myself against the wet alley wall, the crystal's pulse now so fast it felt like a continuous hum. Then something extraordinary happened. A voice cut through my panic, not Aurora's, but somehow familiar. It came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking directly into my mind. The key responds to intention, it said. Your fear makes it unstable. Focus. Remember why you must survive. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing despite the approaching footsteps. The crystal's warmth spread up my arm, and suddenly I understood. These weren't just stored coordinates in my head. They were moving, changing, living data. A network of resistance that had existed right under our noses for decades. The closest figure reached for me with a hand that rippled like dark mercury. In that moment, I thought of everything Aurora had said about human compassion, about choice, about survival. I chose. The crystal flared with brilliant light, but not the soft blue from before. This was pure white, piercing, geometric patterns cascading through the air like digital lightning. The figures recoiled, their suits rippling violently. The voice in my head grew stronger. Now you begin to understand. We have been waiting for someone like you. The light from the crystal formed a dome around me, and through it, I saw something that turned my world upside down. The rain, the same rain that had burned Aurora, was affecting these dark figures too, but differently. Where it touched their suits, the liquid seemed to absorb into them, making them grow more solid, more present. They're not here to capture you, the voice explained as understanding dawned. They're here to emerge. Your world's altered weather isn't just terraforming, it's an incubator, and humanity is the host. Above, the storm intensified, but now I saw it with new eyes. The lightning wasn't random. It was a pattern, a pulse, a heartbeat. The entire storm system was alive, aware, transforming. Each raindrop was a seed, each thunderclap a signal. Aurora, I gasped, understanding flooding in. She wasn't just warning us about them. She was warning them about us. The figures had backed away from my light dome, but they were changing, growing more substantial with each passing second. Their suits weren't suits at all. They were cocoons, and they were ready to hatch. The voice came again, stronger now. The Lumini found Earth by following an echo, a signal sent by the last of my kind. We were the original guardians of this world, sleeping in crystal matrices deep beneath your cities. The storm woke us, but we are too few now to fight alone. The shell device in my hand reconstructed itself, transforming into something like a key. The crystal responded, sections rotating and realigning. In my mind, the coordinates shifted, forming new patterns, revealing hidden depths. Your species stands at a crossroads, the voice continued. The harvesters will emerge tonight in every major city, using the storm as cover. But they don't understand what Aurora discovered, what made Earth different from all their other conquered worlds. Through the light dome, I watched the figures continue their transformation. Behind them, more shadows moved in the rain, taking shape, becoming solid. The harvest was beginning. What? I asked, although I was beginning to understand. What makes us different? Your adaptability, your determination, your capacity for change. The voice held a note of what might have been hope. And most importantly, your choice. Always, in every moment, your choice. The crystal and key aligned with a click that seemed to echo through dimensions. The dome of light began to pulse in sync with the storm above, but differently now, not fighting it, but redirecting it, changing its purpose. Aurora didn't come to save humanity. The voice said as understanding bloomed fully in my mind. She came to show humanity how to save itself. But first, you must choose to become something more than you are. The storm isn't just their incubator, it's your crucible. The harvesters were fully formed now, their true forms towering in the rain. Behind me, a familiar light bloomed. Aurora, somehow still fighting, still surviving, her true purpose finally clear. The choice she had mentioned wasn't about running or fighting. It was about transformation. evolution, the next step. And I had just made it for all of us. The storm reached its peak, the rain heavy with possibility, as humanity's true test began. The rain fell heavier now, each drop containing the potential for either destruction or rebirth. The crystal and key merged in my hands, becoming something new, a tool, a weapon, a bridge between what we were and what we could become. The harvesters advanced, their true forms like walking shadows given weight and substance by Earth's transformed rain. Aurora appeared beside me, her light pulsing in sync with the crystal key. Her silver eyes met mine, and I saw in them not fear, but fierce pride. "You understand now," she said, her voice harmonizing with the storm, "why it had to be someone like you, someone who would help a stranger on a rainy night, even knowing the risks." The voice of the ancient guardian filled my mind again. The harvesters consume worlds by transforming them, but they've never encountered a species that could transform itself faster than they could reshape its world. Until now. I felt it then, the change beginning, not just in me, but everywhere. The crystal key's light spread through the rain like a web of possibilities, connecting every drop, every person caught in the storm. In my mind, I saw them all, millions of people looking up at the strange rain, feeling the first stirrings of change. The nearest harvester reached for us with limbs of living shadow. Aurora raised her hand, her skin blazing with light that seemed to bend reality itself. "Choose now," she said, "choose for all of them." I raised the crystal key, understanding flowing through me like electricity. The harvesters hadn't come to destroy humanity. They'd come to force our evolution in their image. But they didn't understand that humanity's greatest strength was choosing its own path. "We choose ourselves," I declared and pressed the key's activation sequence. The storm exploded with light. Every raindrop became a prism, refracting not just light but possibility itself. The harvesters recoiled as their transformative rain was itself transformed. Their shadowy forms began to dissolve, not in destruction but in integration, becoming part of the very change they had tried to force. Through the crystal key's connection, I felt it happening everywhere. People awakening to new awareness, their bodies and minds adapting not to an alien pattern, but to one uniquely their own. The ancient guardian's knowledge flowed through the storm network, teaching, guiding, but never controlling. Aurora's form shifted, her light merging with the transformed rain. "My people will come now," she said, her voice carrying through the worldwide web of awakening minds, not as saviors, but as equals, as teachers and students both. The harvester's failure here will echo across galaxies, the story of a species that chose its own evolution. The shadow forms of the harvesters had completely dissolved now, their essence absorbed into Earth's biosphere, their power redirected. The storm began to calm, but the change it had brought was permanent. I could feel the crystal key's network humming with millions of newly awakened minds, each transformed in their own unique way. But there was one final surprise waiting in the rain. As the last of the harvesters dissolved, a new form took shape, familiar yet different. The ancient guardian, stepping out of crystal sleep into physical form for the first time in millennia. Its appearance shifted like quicksilver, combining aspects of human, Luini, and something far older. This was always the goal, it said, its voice now physical rather than mental, not to prevent the harvest, but to turn it into transcendence. Earth is now a beacon, proof that evolution can be chosen, not merely imposed. I looked down at my hands, watching the subtle play of light beneath my skin, human, but more. Around me, the rain had stopped, leaving behind a world forever changed. Through the crystal key's network, I felt others like me awakening to their new reality, each transformation unique, each choice personal. Aurora smiled, her form stabilizing into something between her original self and her human disguise. And now, she said, the real work begins, teaching a transformed humanity how to use its new potential wisely. The ancient guardian nodded, its form settling into something more solid, which is why we need people like you, those who understand that power isn't just about transformation, but about helping others through their own changes. I felt a responsibility settling onto my shoulders, heavy but welcome. Through the crystal key's network, I could sense others like me, those who had been caught in the storm, those who had chosen to help guide humanity's next steps. We were changed, but still fundamentally human, still ourselves, just more. Above, the clouds parted, revealing stars that seemed somehow closer, more accessible than ever before. The harvesters had meant to prepare Earth for their kind of life. Instead, they had become part of humanity's greatest step forward. I looked at Aurora and the Guardian, then at the crystal key that had become part of me. So, I said, managing a smile despite everything that had happened, where do we start? The answer came not in words, but in a shimmer of possibilities as bright as the transformed rain, as vast as the sky above, and as human as the choice that had changed everything. The night that started with a wet alien at my door had ended with humanity's first step into a larger universe, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, other worlds waited, watching to see what we would choose to become next. 1 year after the night of the storm, I stood on my apartment's rooftop, watching the sunset paint the transformed city in shades of gold and purple. The changes were subtle to outside observers. Humans still looked human, buildings still stood, life went on. But beneath the surface, everything was different. The Crystal Key Network had become humanity's greatest teaching tool. Through it, we learned from both the Lumini and the ancient Guardians, growing into our new potential at our own pace. Some chose subtle enhancements, improved empathy, deeper connection to the natural world. Others embraced more dramatic changes, adapting their forms to explore the depths of oceans or the edges of space. Aurora had kept her promise, splitting her time between Earth and her homeworld. She became something of a cultural ambassador, helping bridge the gap between traditional human society and our emerging transformed communities. The apartment where she'd first knocked on my door was now a historical landmark, though I'd kept my lease, much to the building manager's amusement. The harvester essence we'd absorbed hadn't gone to waste. Their knowledge, filtered through the Crystal Key Network, taught us how to heal our planet's damaged ecosystems. The same rain that had once burned Aurora now carried restoration instead of transformation, helping reverse centuries of environmental damage. I touched the spot on my chest where the crystal key had merged with me, feeling its warm pulse sync with my heartbeat. Through it, I sensed others like me. The storm changed as people called us, each working in their own way to guide humanity's transition. We weren't leaders or rulers, just helpers, making sure everyone had the chance to choose their own path. The ancient Guardian had established a council of sorts, combining human wisdom with Lumini science and its own deep knowledge. They met in places between spaces, discussing everything from interstellar relations to philosophical implications of self-directed evolution. I attended sometimes, still amazed that my life had led to this. But my favorite moments were the simple ones, like tonight, standing on the rooftop where everything had changed, watching my city adapt to its new reality. Below, a group of children played in the park, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Some showed subtle signs of transformation, gossamer-like hair that caught the light, eyes with extra depth, while others appeared completely ordinary. All of them growing up in a world where difference was celebrated, not feared. A familiar chiming sound made me smile. Aurora materialized beside me, her form shifting like moonlight on water. Still watching over them, she asked, her voice carrying those impossible harmonics that had once seemed so alien. "Someone has too," I replied. "Every day, more people choose to change. They all need guides, friends. Someone who remembers what it was like to be purely human." She nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the sunset. "You chose well that night. We all did." The crystal key hummed in agreement, sending ripples of warmth through the network. Somewhere out there, other worlds were watching Earth's experiment in self-directed evolution. Some with hope, others with concern. But this was our path now. Not given, not forced, but chosen. I thought back to that rainy night, to opening my door to a stranger who needed help. Such a small choice that had changed everything. But then, that's what being human had always been about, the small choices that added up to who we became. Above us, the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. They didn't seem as distant anymore. They felt like possibilities, waiting to be explored by a humanity that had learned to change itself before changing others. The future was uncertain, but then it always had been. The difference was now we could face it together, humans, Lumini, transformed and traditional alike, all because on one rainy night someone knocked on my door and I chose to answer.